Greetings and salutations, it's I, your proverbial boy Jeffy here in Paris, France. It's a little quick weekend trip, no big deal. I'm actually speaking at the RSD Euro Summit here. Next week, I'm gonna be in Dallas, Texas. I'm doing a free event there as well. And at this event, I'm gonna be revealing some of the fundamental ideas for my upcoming program, Charisma Mastery. Yes, it's finally happening. So this is gonna be a free event. So if you ever wanted to meet me, ask me a question, or perhaps touch me, whatever, it's gonna be your chance. So check out the link in the description below and hopefully I will see you there. So, to me, today's video is a very, very important one, and the topic is social intelligence. And myself, Julian Tyler Max, believe it or not, this is all something that we struggled with a great deal when we first started out. So as such, I have a lot to say about the topic. And in this video, I'd like to specifically discuss social vibing and insecurity. And this is gonna be a very focused, but very important piece of the overall puzzle. So there are many sub-communications that are being telegraphed at all times in any interaction, and these are both verbal and nonverbal. Social interactions have features and customs that, I suppose, are designed to make them more pleasant. As social animals, humans, we got the unique attribute of actually enjoying socializing just for the sake of socializing. In other words, we socially vibe. And people who actually break this vibe are considered to be socially unintelligent people. And despite being perhaps very good and worthwhile people in their daily lives, they're gonna come across poorly in interactions. Now look, most people, once you get to know them, are probably pretty worthwhile. I've rarely met someone who, when I was put in a position where I was by circumstance forced to get to know them over time, I rarely met someone in that situation that I didn't come to like eventually. So what's the difference between somebody who's cool and somebody who is uncool? Well, basically it comes down to the way that they come across in interactions, right? Their level of social intelligence, their ability to convey it, their ability to telegraph it, their ability to sub-communicate it. Understanding how to socially vibe, this telegraphs that you're secure with yourself. Failing to understand how to socially vibe telegraphs insecurity. So in this video, we're gonna assume that the early stages of meeting someone, right, the initial approach is past, and you're in the comfort building stage. So first, let's look at laughing as vibing. Now laughter, it's not only a stress relief mechanism, it's actually a social mechanism. Laughter basically shows that your social group's vibing well. You know, lower primates, monkeys, they can't talk like we can, but they still laugh when they're in rapport with each other. So think back to a time when you were telling a joke and the group vibe was just very, very tight, right? People probably started to laugh even before you delivered the punchline. Maybe you even said, look guys, I haven't even told the joke yet and you're laughing. And they can't figure out why, and they just laugh even more and more as you say this. And if you think about the movie Goodfellas, you know, the Scorsese film, in the scene where the Joe Pesci character, he's telling jokes at the restaurant table and everyone's just laughing harder and harder and harder, right? You know that scene? Hopefully, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Classic film. But the Ray Liotta character, he just cannot stop laughing. And it's not even necessarily the humor of the Joe Pesci character's jokes. It's the overarching vibe. People who aren't socially intelligent will laugh at their own jokes, right? They'll laugh prior to the group starting to even laugh. So try to notice that next time somebody laughs at their own joke first. Like maybe you were just about to laugh, but then you didn't after they laughed first. Why? Because they were attempting to fill in the so-called rapport gap. When the boss of the office tells the joke, everybody laughs. When the punk of the company tells the joke, he worries that nobody's gonna laugh, and so he laughs at his own joke first to fill in the so-called rapport gap. So concentrate on vibing and don't actually try to artificially push rapport. Much, much better is to wait until the group laughs and then laugh along with them. Now this gap is also seen when people say right or you know after all their sentences, right? They're trying to fill in the right that the other person should have said if they had been socially vibing properly, all right? So that's just one element. Next, let's discuss rhetorical sequencing. When you think about it, when we're talking, people sometimes often use kind of weird rhetorical sequencing. So here's an example. Let's say you got a guy and he's excited that he got a cheap deal on a coat. right? So in an example of good vibing, the guy would be like, hey man, check out this new coat I got. You'll never guess how much I paid for this. And the friend's like, I don't know, man, $200? It's like, no, man, $45. It's like, wow, awesome, dude, right? So that's an example of good vibing. Now, conversely, let's look at an example of bad vibing. First guy goes up, he's like, hey man, check out this coat. You'll never guess how much I got it for. He's like, oh, you got a deal. I don't know, like $20. The friend's like, no, 45. Friend's like, oh, well, I guess it's not that bad. So notice what happened there is the friend telegraphed subcommunications of insecurity. His internal thought process is probably something along the lines of, I'll show that I'm smart. I'm clever enough to pick up on the fact that that he said, you'll never guess what I paid, that he got a deal. So by lowballing it, I'll show him that I'm smart and I passed his little test. So breaking it down a little further, his insecurity caused him to miss out on that social vibing. And the social vibe was intended to build excitement and just a good vibe in the interaction. And it wasn't in fact a test at all. So the first guy, the secure guy, although realizing that the coat was probably really cheap, he'd still get something lower end, but still high enough that if the guy's deal wasn't as great as he thought, he'd still feel good about it. After all, he already bought it, so why worry about that? Unless, of course, you seriously could hook up a massively cheaper deal and return the coat, and that would be something that the socially intelligent guy would be able to ascertain before he even suggested it, in which case the happiness derived from that would outweigh actually telling the guy that he didn't get the best deal. The person who's not vibing right doesn't get something. And what he doesn't get is this. The purpose of the initial comment is not to actually debate, right? It's just socially vibe. The content was not the real communication. It was a surface for sub-communication, which intended to say, hey, look, let's just have a nice time, have rapport with each other, enjoy each other's company, and relax. Understand, in most cases, the vibe is paramount, not the content. It's not the content that attracts people. It's the vibe. The insecure, the socially unintelligent person is taking the sentences of the first person and fielding them as opportunities to qualify himself. So next, let's talk about hierarchies and their role in social interactions. In a big group setting, we all get our moment in the sun at some point. And you'll notice that when you're holding court, it's your turn to talk, sometimes people in the group are going to be insecure with that. So the secure guy, he will recognize when it's someone else's turn to hold court, and he won't actually fight that. So a person who is secure will actually talk to add emphasis to a point. He's not going to dispute a point while someone else is holding court. He knows he's going to have his chance to talk later, and that right now it's the other guy's turn, right? Right now someone else is trying to get a point across. So people who are insecure, you'll notice they'll constantly dispute points whenever they see the opening. They view it as an opportunity to demonstrate their value, and they simply cannot resist the temptation. They just can't resist it, right? So just as an example, think of, let's say, an internet forum, right? Something title get posted, and insecure posters will nitpick the semantics of the post, right? Like, well, this is important, but it's maybe an 8 out of 10 level importance, not 10 like you said. The secure poster, if he finds the level of emphasis on, like, say, a level where it's honestly misinformative, he might respond, yeah, look, XYZ that you said are really good. I might consider a little less emphasis on it, though, because ABC is important as well. But it's a good post, man. I like XYZ, okay? Another thing that you'll see in kind of the same vein is throwing little insults or trying to come off as authoritative when it's not your place. So, for example, you'll see people that are trying to get rapport with other people that they don't really know on that level by throwing little insults at them. So, if you have two old friends and they see each other and the one friend sees his buddy, he's like, hey, Steve, you old bastard, come here. Give me a hug, bruh, right? That's warranted because they know each other. Now with bad vibing, you got like a new acquaintance who sees Steve and he's like, hey, Steve, loser, come over here, help me. So the second's bad vibing. Why? Because he's trying to force rapport with a subcommunication that's only appropriate of old friends. In a similar fashion, you'll see guys who try to come across as authoritative. You'll see it on the internet. A guy will post something quality, and somebody who doesn't like him will post, oh, wow, that's very quality material. Good to see you post something of quality. It's like he's trying to come off as authoritative. He realizes that he's ripped the guy on the forum before, and he feels insecure that the guy he insulted actually produced something worthwhile. So he's got to come in and try to be all authoritative, like, hey, I can show everyone that I recognize good content when I see it. I'm being real magnanimous here, right? Examples IRL, real life. Guy will see somebody who they publicly disliked starting to improve themselves, and they'll say things like, hey man, good thing that you're improving. Keep it up. So by this, they're trying to control what's happening. They're trying to say, improve because I, the authority, approved of you. So, a little more on this. If you've ever ran a very good presentation, say at school or at work, and you see an insecure person come up to you and criticize, they don't realize it's your turn to hold court. Their turn is later. So what do? They throw little insults at you. Like they always got to offer advice on how you could have improved it. They just can't be like, hey, good job, man. They got to nitpick little subtleties. They just can't say, hey, that was awesome. They got to go first give their 2 cents on where you messed it up. But it was good, right? But it was good, but you could have improved. Now, finally, and perhaps most importantly, let's look at the idea that a good social interaction will have vibing as the presupposition, right? It's not discussing an issue. And this is one that I notice a lot of people simply do not get. When socializing, a good vibe will be set when the reason for being there is simply to enjoy each other's company. But sometimes a bad vibe can be set when the presupposition is that you're there for some specific purpose. And look, of course, there's nothing wrong with purpose, okay? It has a place, and more of my daily interactions have a purpose than those that are simply to socially vibe, right? Like at work, or you're interacting with a cashier, et cetera, et cetera. However, having an understanding that putting a set purpose to an interaction will often stop a nice vibe from occurring, this can help in a situation where you're trying to get intimate with somebody who you just met. So insecure people will often latch onto a purpose for the conversation as a way of maintaining it. And they'll leave on a high note once that purpose is exhausted, once that conversational thread is exhausted. And this is a huge major cause of flaking, right? You maintained a conversation with someone, but the presupposition was that you were simply discussing an issue, right? You left on the high note, but you didn't realize that you were actually reinforcing to them that you're not socially compatible. So when you go to meet up again, she'll think, well, we really don't have much in common. We really don't have much more to talk about though. So I don't want to have nothing to talk about because that would make me feel uncomfortable. Clinging too strenuously to a particular topic can actually come across as insecure. So when you say to a friend, hey, let's go get a beer, the subtext is we're going to go out and we're going to socially vibe. You're not going to discuss a specific issue. No, you have a friendship. So look, like I said, coming to these realizations was something that really took my game to the next level back in the day, and that's why I feel it was important to share this video. So beyond that, I got some big news coming up surrounding the upcoming Charisma Mastery Program. I know you've been hearing me talk about this for a while, and within the next couple of weeks, I'm actually going to be dropping the trailer for this program that gives you the first look at what's contained therein. Now, I know charisma in the past, it's usually been thought of as something that you either have or you don't. But with this program, I want to change that perception. And one of the biggest issues that I see in my life coaching is that people can know all the techniques in the world, but there's something blocking them from executing and taking action, right? Something inside them is blocking their energy. And if we define charisma, quote unquote, as energy flow, then we can exercise the energies and we can increase the flow. But we got to make sure that nothing's impeding the flow in the first place. Remove the interference and the charisma will increase. And once we do that, we isolate the elements that contribute to the flow and exercise them separately before recombining them, right? Remove the obstacles, isolate the skills, exercise them separately, then put them back together in a more completely realized whole. And as I said, the trailer's dropping soon, so be on the lookout for that. I'm very excited to bring you this stuff. I think it's my best work to date. So this has been Jeffy from Paris, France, surrounded by bugs here, so I'm gonna get off this bridge, and I'll see you next time.